Commander Jack Wilson rubbed his tired eyes as he floated near the observation window of the International Space Station. The endless black of space stretched before him, dotted with countless stars. It was his 4th month aboard the station, and the view still took his breath away. The first sign that something was different came when the station's sensors started beeping. Jack pushed away from the window and moved quickly to the main control panel. The readings made no sense. Massive objects were appearing out of nowhere at the edge of their solar system. "Houston, this is ISS. Are you seeing these readings?" Jack called through the radio. The response came back filled with static, but the message was clear. They were seeing it too. Then the objects appeared, visible even from the station's windows. Massive ships, unlike anything humans had ever built, emerged from what looked like tears in space itself. Their surfaces shifted colors like oil on water, and they moved with impossible grace for their size. "All stations, this is Mission Control. We're tracking multiple unknown objects entering the solar system. Stand by for further instructions." The voice from Houston sounded calm, but Jack could hear the tension underneath. Within hours, every screen on Earth and in space lit up with the same message. The aliens called themselves the Watchers, and they had been studying life across the galaxy for millions of years. Their message was simple but shocking. "We have observed 10,427 intelligent species across this galaxy." The message read in perfect English and every other human language simultaneously. Each follows predictable patterns of development, behavior, and thought. "But you, humans of Earth, do not fit our models. You are an anomaly we must understand." Jack watched as worldwide panic turned into cautious curiosity. The Watchers remained in high orbit, their ships now visible from Earth as new stars in the night sky. They made no hostile moves, only requesting to observe and interact. 2 days later, Jack hosted the first face-to-face meeting with the Watchers aboard the ISS. The alien beings who emerged from their shuttle were tall and fluid, their forms shifting slightly as if they were made of living mercury. They moved with careful precision in the zero gravity, their movements somehow both familiar and utterly alien. "We have watched your kind for centuries," the lead Watcher said, its voice coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You build mighty machines, yet cling to ancient traditions. You wage terrible wars, yet risk your lives to save strangers. You destroy your environment, yet fight desperately to preserve it. You are inconsistent." Jack thought carefully before responding. "We're human," he said simply. "Being inconsistent is part of who we are." The Watcher's form rippled. A gesture Jack would later learn indicated deep interest. Other species follow logical progressions. They either advance or destroy themselves. They either embrace technology or reject it. They either unite or remain divided. But you do all these things at once. "That's because we're not just one thing," Jack explained. "Every human is different. We don't all think alike or want the same things. Sometimes that causes problems, but it's also our greatest strength." The Watchers conferred among themselves, their forms merging and separating in a hypnotic dance. Finally, they turned back to Jack. "We propose a test," they announced. 3 challenges to prove the worth of your inconsistency. Other species have faced similar trials. All have failed. "What happens if we fail?" Jack asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Then you will be classified as another predictable species, bound by the same limitations as all others. Your potential will be adjusted accordingly." Jack felt the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. "And if we succeed?" The Watcher's form shimmered with what might have been amusement. "In all our observations, no species has ever succeeded. But if you do, you will help us rewrite our understanding of civilization itself." As Jack looked out at the alien ships hovering beyond the station, he knew humanity was about to face its greatest test, not of their technology or their military might or their intelligence, but of their very nature as human beings. The United Nations building in New York had never been so crowded. Representatives from every nation sat shoulder to shoulder in the Great Hall, while billions watched through their screens at home. On the stage, 3 ordinary people stood facing the assembled leaders of Earth, while behind them, 2 watchers shifted and swirled like liquid metal. "You must choose your champions," the watchers had said. "Those who will face our 3 impossible challenges." The world's governments had immediately suggested their top scientists, military leaders, and brightest minds. But something unexpected happened. A simple suggestion from a small country's representative had changed everything. What if we chose ordinary people instead? Now, 3 weeks later, the chosen ones stood ready. Mary Smith, a construction worker from Canada, with 20 years of experience building bridges in the most challenging conditions. Tom Baker, a high school teacher from Kenya who had a gift for helping troubled students learn. And Linda Martinez, a nurse from Brazil who had worked in emergency rooms for 15 years. The watchers seemed confused by these choices. Their forms rippled with what humans had learned to recognize as uncertainty. "These are not your best," one asked. "Not your brightest, not your most advanced." The Secretary General stepped forward. "They are exactly who we need," she said firmly. "They represent the true spirit of humanity." Mary stepped forward first. Her work boots made a solid sound on the polished floor, so different from the whispered movements of the watchers. "I've built bridges across rivers, canyons, and in the middle of storms," she said. "I've learned that every problem has a solution if you look at it the right way." Tom spoke next, his voice calm and clear. "In my classroom, I've taught children who speak different languages, who learn in different ways, who see the world differently. I've learned that understanding comes in many forms." Linda's voice was gentle but strong. "In the emergency room, I've helped people from all walks of life. I've learned that healing isn't just about medicine. It's about connecting with people when they need it most." The watchers conferred among themselves, their forms merging and separating in that strange dance the humans still couldn't interpret. Finally, they turned back to address the assembly. "Your choices are unexpected," they said. "All other species chose their most exceptional individuals, their most intelligent, their most advanced. You choose common ones." "They're not common," Jack Wilson said from his seat in the front row, having returned from the space station for this meeting. "They're human, and that's exactly what we need." The watchers extended tendrils of their liquid metal forms, bringing forth 3 crystal-like objects that floated in the air. These contain the challenges. Each must be solved within 1 Earth year. Each has been attempted by other species. None have succeeded. Mary took the first crystal, which shimmered with impossible geometries inside. Tom accepted the second, which seemed to contain moving dreams. Linda received the third, which pulsed with a sickly energy that made everyone in the room feel uneasy. "If we succeed?" Linda asked, holding her crystal carefully. "Then humanity will have proven itself unique among all species we have encountered," the watchers replied. "If you fail?" "We won't," Mary said firmly, looking at her crystal with the same expression she used when facing a particularly challenging construction site. "We'll solve these puzzles our way." As the 3 humans left the stage, carrying their impossible challenges, the watchers turned to each other. Their forms rippled with what might have been concern, or perhaps excitement. For the first time in their long history of testing species, they faced something they couldn't predict. The whole world watched as their 3 ordinary champions stepped forward to face extraordinary challenges. The test of humanity had begun. Mary stood at the edge of something that shouldn't exist. The quantum void stretched before her like a river of darkness, except there was no other side visible. According to the watchers, it was a tear in space itself, 50 meters wide. The challenge seemed simple: build a bridge across it. The problem was that nothing seemed to stay in the void. Everything that touched it simply disappeared. Previous species attempted to span it with energy fields, The watcher assigned to observe her explained, its silver form rippling. They tried quantum tunneling, gravity manipulation. All failed. Mary didn't respond immediately. Instead, she did what she'd done at every construction site for the past 20 years. She sat down, pulled out her thermos of coffee, and watched. Other humans found her method strange. Scientists and engineers had offered complex solutions, but she had turned them all down. She wanted to understand the void first. "What are you observing?" The watcher asked on the third day, its form showing signs of what humans now recognized as impatience. "The void has a rhythm," Mary said, taking another sip of coffee. "Like a heartbeat. Watch the edges." She pointed to where the darkness seemed to pulse slightly. "Every 6 minutes and 20 seconds, there's a pattern." The watcher's form stilled completely, a sign of surprise. No other species noticed this pattern. "That's because they were too busy trying to solve it," Mary said with a small smile. "Sometimes you need to just sit and listen to what a problem is telling you." Over the next week, Mary had simple equipment brought in. Not the advanced quantum devices others had suggested, but basic tools: pendulums, tuning forks, and simple wave generators. She set them up along the void's edge, watching how they reacted to its pulses. "The void isn't just a hole," she explained to the growing crowd of observers. "It's like a song, but instead of sound, it's singing with space itself. And like any song, it has a beat, a rhythm, and harmonies." On the 10th day, Mary began construction. Her bridge wasn't made of metal or energy fields. Instead, she set up a series of simple resonators along the void's edge. Each one matched a different part of the void's rhythm. When activated together, they created a pattern that matched the void's song perfectly. "Now we wait," she said, checking her watch. The watcher's form swirled with confusion. Wait for what? For the bridge to build itself. As the resonators hummed, something extraordinary happened. The void's darkness began to crystallize in certain spots, forming stepping stones of solid space. The pattern of the resonators was forcing the void to match their rhythm, creating stable points in the chaos. "Impossible," the watcher whispered, its form rippling violently. "The void cannot be solidified." "Not by fighting against it," Mary agreed, watching as more stepping stones appeared. "But if you work with it, match its rhythm, well, everything likes to dance to a good tune." After exactly 6 hours, 20 minutes, and 30 seconds, a complete bridge of crystallized space stretched across the void. Mary walked to the edge and placed her boot on the first stone. It held firm. "Would you like to cross?" she asked the watcher. The alien being moved forward cautiously. "How did you know this would work?" Mary smiled, thinking of all the bridges she'd built over dangerous rivers and deep canyons. Every structure has a natural rhythm. Usually, we build by forcing our will on materials. But sometimes, the better way is to listen to what's already there and work with it instead of against it. She walked across the bridge, her boots making solid sounds on the crystallized void. The watcher followed, its form reflecting the darkness beneath them. "The first challenge is complete," it announced formally. "No," Mary corrected, reaching the other side. "The first conversation is complete." That's what building bridges is really about, finding ways to connect things that seem impossible to connect. The watcher's form rippled with what might have been laughter, the first time any human had seen such a reaction from them. Perhaps they were learning something about bridges too. Tom sat in a comfortable chair in a room filled with soft blue light. Around him, advanced machines hummed quietly, monitoring his brain waves as he prepared to enter the dream state. The second crystal had revealed its challenge: to communicate with beings who existed only in dreams. Previous species attempted to create translation matrices, the watcher explained, its silver form dimmed to avoid disturbing the sensitive equipment. They tried to convert dream thoughts into mathematical equations. All failed to make meaningful contact. Tom smiled, thinking of his years teaching students who couldn't speak the same language. Sometimes the best conversations don't need words at all, he said, leaning back in the chair. Let's try something different. As the machines helped him enter a controlled sleep state, Tom found himself in a space that wasn't quite a dream and wasn't quite reality. Shapes of light and color moved around him, some forming patterns that almost looked like faces before dissolving again. Instead of trying to speak or think in words, Tom did what he'd done countless times in his classroom. He began to draw. In the dream space, his thoughts created images in the air. He drew simple things at first: a tree, a sun, a child playing. The dream beings noticed. Their shifting forms gathered around his drawings, examining them with what felt like curiosity. One of them reached out and touched the image of the tree, causing it to sprout new branches and leaves in impossible patterns. Tom smiled in his sleep. Yes, he thought, let's create together. He drew a bird, leaving it intentionally unfinished. One of the dream beings completed it, but not with feathers. Instead, it had wings made of starlight and a tail of flowing music. Tom could actually hear the colors in this realm. Previous attempts focused on logic. The watcher's voice came from somewhere far away. This is not logical. In response, Tom created an image of a classroom. But instead of showing students sitting in rows learning facts, he showed them finger painting, dancing, playing music. The dream beings whirled excitedly, adding their own touches to the scene. Children with rainbow thoughts, teachers made of light, books that sang their stories. Art class was always my favorite to teach, Tom explained to both the dream beings and the watcher. It's where students who struggled with words could shine in other ways. The dream beings began creating their own images now. They showed Tom visions of their world, a place where thoughts were colors and emotions were songs. They painted stories of their lives, their hopes, their fears. Tom realized they weren't so different from his students after all. What are they saying? The watcher asked, its voice uncertain. They're not saying anything, Tom replied. They're showing us who they are. Sometimes that's more important than words. Over the next few hours, Tom and the dream beings created a shared space of art and emotion. They painted with joy and danced with curiosity. They sculpted with wonder and sang with understanding. When one dream being created an image of sadness, Tom responded with comfort, showing scenes of friends helping friends, of sunshine after rain. Finally, one of the dream beings approached Tom directly. It formed itself into a mirror image of him, but made of flowing colors and musical light. Then it changed, showing him as the dream beings saw him, a teacher not just of facts, but of understanding. As Tom prepared to wake up, the dream beings created one last image together, a bridge made of art and emotion, connecting their world to his. It was their way of saying they wanted to keep talking. Opening his eyes in the real world, Tom saw the watcher's form rippling with what he now recognized as deep thought. You have achieved communication, it stated, but not through any method we predicted. That's because real communication isn't about converting one language into another, Tom explained, sitting up slowly. It's about finding ways to share who we are. Every student taught me that. You just have to be willing to learn new ways of listening. The second challenge was complete, but more importantly, a new kind of conversation had begun. In their own way, the dream beings had become his newest students, and Tom had never been prouder of a class. Linda stood in a quarantine chamber, looking through a special window at the alien patients beyond. They were beautiful beings that looked like living crystal, but now their surfaces were clouded with dark patterns that pulsed painfully. The quantum plague had struck their colony 3 months ago, and nothing had stopped its spread. Previous species attempted to cure it with advanced medicine, the Watcher explained, keeping its distance from the infected area. They tried genetic manipulation, quantum field generators, even time manipulation. All failed. Linda pulled her hair back into a neat bun, a habit from her years in the emergency room. Tell me about the first case, she said. Not the medical details. Tell me about the patient. The Watcher's form rippled with confusion. The medical data is more relevant. In 15 years of nursing, I've learned that knowing the person is just as important as knowing the disease, Linda replied firmly. When did this start? What was happening in their lives? Reluctantly, the Watcher shared the story. The crystal beings had been a peaceful colony until a tragic accident destroyed one of their main cities. The plague appeared shortly after, spreading from person to person like a dark shadow. Linda studied the patterns of darkness moving through the crystal beings' bodies. It's not just their bodies that are sick, she said softly. They're grieving. She put on a protective suit and entered the quarantine area. The crystal beings dimmed their glow as she approached, trying to protect her from their sickness. But Linda walked right up to the nearest patient and did something that made the Watcher's form freeze in shock. She placed her hand gently on the being's surface. I'm here to help, she said simply. Can you show me what you're feeling? The crystal being's surface rippled under her touch. The dark patterns shifted, forming images of the lost city, of separated families, of a community torn apart. Linda nodded, understanding, remembering similar patterns of loss and pain she'd seen in human patients. Your bodies aren't just sick, she explained to the gathered crystal beings. Your hearts are hurting. The plague isn't just feeding on your physical form, it's feeding on your sorrow. Over the next few days, Linda set up something the crystal beings had never seen before, a grief counseling circle. She encouraged them to share their stories, to show their memories through their crystalline bodies, to acknowledge their pain instead of trying to hide it. Previous attempts to cure focused only on the body, the Watcher observed, watching through the window. Because that's what you can see, Linda replied. But healing often needs to start from within. As the crystal beings shared their grief, something remarkable began to happen. The dark patterns in their bodies started to shift. When they shared happy memories of their lost ones, their crystals would briefly glow brighter. When they supported each other, the darkness would temporarily retreat. Linda brought in human grief counselors, artists, and musicians. They helped the crystal beings express their pain through art and music. The vibrations of earth instruments created beautiful patterns in their crystalline forms. Slowly, the darkness began to fade. The plague is responding to emotional states, the Watcher realized, its form rippling with excitement. It was never just a plague. Linda explained, watching a young crystal being create a beautiful light pattern in memory of its lost family. It was their pain made physical. By helping them heal their hearts, we're helping their bodies fight back. After a month of combined emotional and physical healing, the first crystal being's surface cleared completely. Others followed quickly after. The plague couldn't maintain its hold once the grief began to lift. You have cured the incurable, the Watcher stated, but not through any medical advancement. Linda smiled, thinking of all the patients she'd helped over the years. Sometimes the strongest medicine isn't in a bottle, she said. Sometimes it's in a gentle touch, a kind word, or just being there to say, I understand your pain, and you're not alone. The third challenge was complete, but Linda knew the real healing was just beginning. As she watched the crystal beings starting to glow brightly again, she understood that this was what being a nurse was really about, not just fixing what was broken, but helping others find their light again. The Great Hall of the United Nations fell silent as the Watchers gathered in the center. Their silver forms merged into a swirling column that reached toward the ceiling. On one side sat Mary, Tom, and Linda, while Commander Jack stood nearby. The world watched through screens, waiting to hear the Watcher's judgment. We have observed your solutions to our 3 impossible challenges. The Watchers began, their combined voice echoing through the hall. We must admit, we are confused. The columns separated into 3 forms. The first moved toward Mary. You did not try to conquer the void with force or technology. Instead, you listened to it, understood its rhythm, and worked with it. The second form approached Tom. You did not attempt to create a logical system of communication with the dream beings. Instead, you shared feelings, created art, and found connection through creativity. The third form floated near Linda. You did not fight the quantum plague with advanced medicine alone. Instead, you saw the connection between physical and emotional healing and helped cure both. The three forms merged again, creating patterns of light that danced across their silver surface. In all our observations across the galaxy, we have never seen solutions like these. They are imperfect by our standards. They rely on intuition, emotion, and understanding that we cannot quantify. Commander Jack stepped forward. That's because they're human solutions, he said. We don't always take the most logical path. Sometimes we take the path that feels right. The Watchers form rippled with intense activity. This contradicts all our data about successful civilizations. Advanced species should become more logical, more structured, more predictable. Yet we become more human, Mary interrupted, standing up. Every bridge I've built taught me something new, not just about engineering, but about working with nature instead of against it. Tom joined her. Every student I've taught has shown me a different way of seeing the world. Sometimes the best learning happens when we let go of our preconceptions. Linda stood as well. And every patient I've helped has reminded me that healing isn't just about following procedures. It's about connecting with people and understanding their pain. The Watcher's form began to change color, showing swirls of gold among the silver, something no human had seen before. We have existed for millions of years, they said. We thought we understood the pattern of civilization's progress, but you have shown us something new. Images appeared in the air around them, scenes from human history, people helping strangers during disasters, scientists working together across borders to solve problems, artists creating beauty from pain, parents teaching children to dream. Your weakness is your strength, the Watchers continued. Your emotional nature, which we thought made you unstable, allows you to see solutions we cannot. Your diversity, which we thought made you chaotic, gives you countless ways to solve problems. Your willingness to embrace imperfection, which we thought would limit you, actually sets you free. The images changed to show Mary's bridge, built in harmony with the void. Tom's artistic communication with the dream beings. Linda healing the crystal people's hearts and bodies together. You have not merely solved our challenges, the Watchers announced. You have shown us a new kind of civilization, one that grows not by becoming more uniform, but by becoming more diverse, not by eliminating emotion, but by understanding it, not by forcing order, but by finding harmony in chaos. Commander Jack smiled. That's the spirit of humanity. We're not perfect. We're not the strongest or the smartest, but we never stop trying to understand, to connect, to help each other grow. The Watcher's form stabilized into a bright golden silver light. Then perhaps it is we who have something to learn from you. You have shown us that there are more paths to advancement than we imagined. The true test was not for humanity. It was for us. As the hall erupted in applause and cheers, the three humans who had faced the impossible challenges shared a quiet look. They hadn't just proved humanity's worth to the galaxy. They had shown that ordinary human qualities, compassion, creativity, and understanding, could solve problems that even the most advanced technology couldn't touch. 1 year after the challenges, Commander Jack stood once again at the observation window of the International Space Station. But this time, he wasn't alone. Mary, Tom, and Linda floated nearby, while the Watcher's gold-and-silver form hovered in the center of the module. "Look at that," Mary said, pointing to where several crystal beings were working with human engineers to build a new kind of space dock. Their crystalline forms created beautiful patterns in the sunlight as they used their natural abilities alongside human technology. Through another window, they could see a garden module where the dream beings had helped create a new space for shared art and communication. Their ethereal forms occasionally became visible as shifting colors in the air, working with human artists to create works that existed somewhere between reality and dreams. They said we would rewrite their understanding of civilization. Tom commented, watching a group of children on a video screen below. learning to share thoughts and feelings with the dream beings through art. But I don't think any of us expected this. The Watchers' form rippled with what they now knew was joy. Your species has already changed how we observe and interact with others. We no longer simply watch. We learn, we share, we grow together. Linda smiled as she saw a medical ship approaching the station. Its hull bore both human medical symbols and the crystalline patterns of their new allies. Every patient teaches us something new, she said. Now we're all learning from each other. But it's more than that, Jack added, turning from the window. The Watchers didn't just learn about humanity. They learned from humanity. And that's changing everything. The Watcher moved closer to the window, its form reflecting Earth's blue glow. We have observed for millions of years, categorizing and predicting. But you taught us to do more than observe. You taught us to connect. Images appeared around them, holographic displays showing changes across the galaxy. Species that the Watchers had once dismissed as primitive were now being understood in new ways. Civilizations that seemed stuck in their development were revealing unique strengths. The galaxy was becoming more colorful, more diverse, more alive. The impossible bridge taught us that strength isn't about dominating nature, but working in harmony with it. The Watcher continued. The dream beings showed us that communication isn't just about exchanging information, but sharing understanding. And the Crystal People proved that healing isn't just about curing illness, but nurturing life in all its forms. Mary touched the window gently. Just like every bridge is different, because it needs to work with the land around it. Tom nodded. And every student needs their own way to learn and grow. And every patient needs their own path to healing, Linda added. Commander Jack watched Earth rotate slowly below them. That's the real spirit of humanity, he said. Not that we're special or better, but that we're always ready to learn, to adapt, to find new ways forward. Even when we make mistakes, we keep trying. The Watcher's form brightened, and that is why we now come not just to observe, but to learn. Your species has shown us that the greatest discoveries come not from perfect knowledge, but from being willing to explore the unknown with an open heart. As they floated there, watching Earth and the growing space station that now hosted beings from across the galaxy, each of them understood that this wasn't just a happy ending, it was a new beginning. Humanity had passed its test not by being perfect, but by being perfectly human. So what's next? Mary asked, her engineer's mind already thinking of new challenges. The Watcher's form sparkled with all the colors they had learned to show since meeting humanity. That is the most wonderful part, it said. For the first time in millions of years, we don't know, and that uncertainty is beautiful. As the sun rose over Earth's horizon, casting golden light through the station's windows, they all understood that the greatest adventure wasn't in proving humanity's worth to the galaxy. It was in showing the galaxy that every species, every being, every heart had something unique to contribute to the great dance of life. The spirit of man had not just changed humanity's future, it had opened the door to a new future for all life in the galaxy. And this was just the beginning.